Who are you? If you had to describe yourself in just a few words, what would you say? For me, my go-to is, "Hi, I'm Jaclyn. I'm a scientist." Or, "I'm an occupational therapist." Other times, I'll refer to myself as I relate to other people. I'm Hank and Debbie's daughter. I'm Nicole and Andrew's sister. I'm Bree and Justin's friend. I'm Spencer's girlfriend. Or, I'm a mom to a cat named Chloe, who decided to wake me up at 4 a.m. this morning to see if I wanted to play. I did not. As an occupational therapist, I recognize that the things people do and the roles that they play in others' lives serve to define them. I spend 40 hours or more each week writing, thinking, analyzing data, creating, designing experiments. That's why I say I am a scientist. But what would happen if all of a sudden I couldn't write or think or design or analyze? Would I still be a scientist? Or would I have lost myself? When an athlete sustains a sports-related concussion, a form of traumatic brain injury, they are asked to refrain from that sport. This makes sense, and it's a good thing, because there's a really scary thing called second impact syndrome, where when an athlete gets a concussion really close to another concussion, it can result in permanent disability or death. Here in Colorado, we have legislation called the Snakin Berg Youth Sports Concussion Act. This act mandates that athletes must be removed from play after they sustain a concussion to prevent second impact syndrome. But then the question becomes, when can they return to play? When is it safe for them to return to the thing that they do, the thing that defines them? For high-performing athletes, like the athletes at Colorado State University, they might spend 20, 30, 40 hours a week doing this thing that defines them. And we ask them to stop. When can we help them return? When can we help them return to athlete? As of today, return to play evaluations, best practice includes self-reported symptoms, cognitive testing, and motor testing like balance. According to a recent review paper, the most commonly used one is self-reported symptoms. There are a couple problems with this. By a show of hands, how many of you have had a headache in the last couple days? Any anxiety? Difficulty sleeping? Oh no. You all have concussions. Oh boy, I have lots of participants to recruit. You probably had a headache, or maybe had a headache because you're getting over a cold, or you have some stress at work, or perhaps you didn't sleep very well, you're a little anxious because you had a big presentation in front of, hold on, let me count, 500 people. This is the problem with symptom reporting. It's not specific to concussion. The other problem with symptom reporting is athletes want to go back, so they do not tell you that they have symptoms. Even when best practice is used, where we ask about symptoms and we ask about their cognitive performance and we evaluate their balance, athletes who have sustained a recent concussion are 3 times more likely to get injured when they return to play, including getting new concussions. So my question is, why? Even when we're using best practice, what are we missing? I have a couple hypotheses. My first hypothesis is the reduction in automaticity hypothesis. Do you remember when you first learned to ride a bike or learned how to ski and how you had to pay so much attention to that task and you had to concentrate a whole bunch in order to do it? And for those of you who do it a lot, it probably has become automatic. You could probably listen to a podcast while you're biking. Or perhaps you could ski and teach someone else how to ski. The skills have become automatic. I think after concussion, athletes have a reduction in the automaticity of those motor skills that they have learned so well. So I've designed an experiment to test this. This is my current study. So what you see here is a Colorado State University athlete wearing an electroencephalography, or EEG, cap. EEG is really cool because it allows us to measure the electrical activity of the brain in real time. And I can look at attention during motor tasks. So here's a very simple motor task that I include in my study. An athlete hears 3 tones. The first tone is frequently presented. They don't have to do anything with it. It just sounds something like this. Okay? There's a novel tone that they also don't have to do anything with, and it sounds like this. Then there's a third tone, and this one's important. This is the one that they have to make a button press to. That's the motor task, just tapping their finger. It sounds like this. Okay. So now I'm going to have you try. So I'm going to give you the same instructions that I give my participants, and what you're going to do is take your right index finger. Good. Most of you know your right from your left. Excellent. And I'm going to ask you to tap every time you hear that last tone. Okay, now you may not remember what that tone is. My athletes don't either. And so the very first tone that you hear in this sequence is going to be that tone that you tap to. Okay? Are you ready? Here we go. You're very good at this. There were 3 times that that tone played. Okay? That's what the athletes have to do. All right, here's what I found. Ta-da! Squiggly lines. I love squiggly lines. I get really excited about squiggly. Okay, I'm going to explain to you why you should get excited about squiggly lines. All right, so in this figure, the blue line represents athletes who are non-concussed. These are age, sex, and sport matched to the next group, the red line, which is the SRC, sports-related concussion group. Okay? Along the horizontal axis is time in milliseconds in reference to event onset. That's fancy talk for the time since that tone played that you had to tap your finger to. Okay? Along the vertical axis, the y-axis, you see the brain response in microvolts at PZ. PZ is a location about here-ish that is thought to be involved in attention and attention use. All right, so here's why I get excited about squiggly lines. So very early on, and then at about 500 milliseconds after that tone is played, the time that you're making that tap, what we see is an increased use of attention in our concussion group. That means it's less automatic for them, which supports my hypothesis, why I get excited about squiggly lines. Now, the scary thing about this is every single one of these athletes had already been cleared to return to play. One of these athletes, her teammate was talking to me and said, well, her concussion was really bad this time, but she plays a really important role on our team, so she'll come back really quickly. That is not okay. That is not the metric to determine when someone is ready to return to play. We need objective measures to help athletes safely return to play. Now, I understand that I'm pretty lucky and I have EEG, that not everybody has EEG. So that brings me to my next hypothesis, insufficient challenge hypothesis. This hypothesis represents the idea that I have that the evaluations that we're using right now are not challenging enough. So I mentioned that they include the symptom reports and balance and cognitive testing. But if you think about something like balance testing, you ask an athlete, a high-performing athlete, to stand on one foot and they don't fall over, and you're like, okay, you're good. I can do that. I can't do very many things, but I can do that, right? That's not a very challenging task. If you think about athletes, they have to stand on one foot while they're scanning the field for their teammates and their opponents and they're preparing to throw a ball. That's a lot. That is a lot. And if we are not sufficiently challenging our athletes, they're not ready to return to play. So, the solution that I propose to this is to use virtual reality. By using virtual reality, we can develop tasks that are progressively difficult. They look at balance, they look at timing, they look at scanning, they look at all sorts of things, all in the context of an environment where the athlete can't get hurt. So, I pitched this idea to a very talented group of Colorado State University computer scientists, and they developed a virtual reality football field. I'm about to show you what it looks like. What you're about to see is the viewpoint from the person participating in this virtual reality environment. Two things to note. If you have any sort of motion sickness, you might want to look away if you start feeling a little queasy, because that wouldn't be good. And the other thing is the colors that were chosen for teammates and opponents are because here at Colorado State University, our colors are white and green, and our rivals, the University of Colorado, their colors are black and gold. So you're going to see those colors displayed in this video. Here we go. We simulated a football field environment to help assess whether athletes are ready to return to play or not after a concussion. The athlete must avoid the white-green dummies, teammates, and knock down the black-gold dummies, opponents. The athlete must take the football from the opponents and pass it to teammates with the red arrow indicator. The throwing mechanism is designed for athletes, making it feel very similar to passing during an actual football game. The player's score is the time it takes for them to make 5 mistakes or strikes. The rate at which the dummies, other players, are generated and how fast they move increases with time. Goodbye. And this is the team of computer scientists who helped develop this. Yeah, give them a round of applause. So this is in its early stages, but I think it has a lot of potential. The hands that you saw on the screen, they have the capacity to incorporate wearable sensors that can give us precise information about the quality of movements of the hands. And they can also be placed on the head, the spine, the legs to give us all sorts of good information about how well those limbs or head is moving. So I think this has a lot of potential for better evaluating athletes and their readiness to return to play. So I'm going to return to my first question now. Who are you? You might be thinking to yourself that this research affects a small number of individuals. But 42 million people worldwide sustain a concussion each year. Up to 1.9 million of those are children under the age of 18 in the United States. So when I ask you, who are you? Maybe you're an athlete who doesn't want to report your symptoms so you can go back to the thing that defines you. Maybe you're a teammate who knows that that athlete who got a concussion is really important to the team's success, or a coach who feels the same way. Or perhaps you're a parent who is so worried about paying for college if you don't get that scholarship. Luckily, we have technology that will allow us to better evaluate when athletes are ready to return to play. I understand how much athletes and their teammates and their coaches and their parents want them to get back to sports. But I think through the use of technology, some of which I've shown you today, we can help facilitate safe return to athlete, to teammate, to champion. Thank you.